Hello, strong, feisty women. Some of you may recognize my voice. I'm Celine Yeager, host of the Hit Play Not Pause podcast. Throughout my career as a professional health and fitness writer and now a podcaster, I hear countless questions from women who are trying to understand how their ever-changing hormones impact their sports performance. So we decided to serve up some answers in a brand new series called Hormonal that we will be releasing on the Feisty Women's Performance Podcast feed. Throughout this 4-part series, reproductive endocrinologist Dr. Carla DiGirolamo and I will be tackling topics like periods, the pill, pregnancy, and conditions like PCOS, all from the perspective of sports performance. If you aren't already, follow the Feisty Women's Performance Podcast and stay tuned for our first episode releasing on April 15th. Also, have questions you want answered? Send us a voice note at speakpipe.com/hormonal and we'll get it answered on the show.
Hello, Feisties. I'm Sarah Gross, CEO and founder of Feisty Media, and I'm here to tell you that our foundational strength training course, Strong, is on sale now through April 10th. If you're like me, you probably get a lot of crap in your Instagram or Facebook feed telling you how you should look or how you will feel if you look a certain way. As summer approaches, this only gets worse. We are told we should have a quote-unquote summer body, as if our bodies somehow morph into something completely different just because the weather changes. And frankly, over here at Feisty Media, we are totally sick of it. Because at Feisty, our vision is to build an empowering culture for active women. We want to shift our attention away from what our bodies look like and focus instead on what our bodies can do. Especially during the summer months, when having the physical strength to do the activities we love is so important. The Strong course is designed to take any woman, regardless of your starting point, through everything you need to know to level up your strength training journey. It includes a 16-week program to help you progress from wherever you are to lifting heavy or heavy-ish with dumbbells or a barbell. It also includes modules on the physiology of strength training for women, nutrition, how we keep ourselves injury-free, and more. I want every woman to be able to do the things that bring her joy and be strong enough to do them for life. Enrollment in this course is now open, and you can sign up and learn more at womensperformance.com/strong, or check the show notes of this episode for the link. And for those of you who are among the 800 women who have already taken the Strong course with one of our previous cohorts, congratulations on taking the plunge. And to the rest of you, see you in the course in April. Make this summer your strongest and best ever. Head over to womensperformance.com/strong today.
Welcome to All Bodies on Bikes, the podcast, where all bodies are good bodies, all bikes are good bikes, and all rides should be celebrated.
All Bodies on Bikes is a movement to create and foster a size-inclusive bike community. So join your hosts, I'm Maggie.
And I'm Marley.
As we explore the complexities of the biking world, help us break down barriers and create the world that we want to see. And don't forget that all bodies really means all bodies, not just larger bodies, but bodies of all sizes, ages, races, abilities, genders, sexualities, and beyond.
Come along for the ride. Hi, friends. Welcome back to the All Bodies on Bikes podcast. We have a really exciting episode today, primarily because these women that we're talking to are absolutely incredible and just did such a remarkable ride that I can't wait to tell you all about. So we're just going to dive right in. So Ozark Gravel Doom. This race calls itself a beautifully evil bikepacking event in the South. With 2 distance options at 400 miles and 196 miles, this event doesn't have any podiums or prize money and is entirely self-supported. The 2024 edition took place this past weekend with the fastest male finisher of the 400-mile Doom category finishing in 45 hours, 42 minutes, and the fastest woman coming in at 2 days. That doesn't make sense. Yeah, it does. 2 days, 4 hours, and 15 minutes. So a couple hours more than the male finisher. I don't have any information on any non-binary finishers, but if we get that info, we will add that into it. And I apologize for that. Today, we're catching up with 3 incredible women who completed the Despair distance, which is 196 miles. Jannine Fitzgerald, Diana Gibson, and Jennifer Swaartout. Tune in as we hear about their inspiration for riding this event, the challenges and triumphs, and why at 50 years old, they feel stronger than ever. Welcome to the show, guys.
Thank you.
Yeah. And I will read all of your individual bios real quickly as well so we know who we're talking to. So Jannine Fitzgerald has dedicated over 3 decades to outdoor exploration and has been a prominent figure in the bike industry since 2002. She's best known for her pioneering spirit as the co-founder of Pedal Kids USA, formerly known as Buddy Pegs, and is particularly passionate about encouraging women to join her on rides. There's a little spoiler alert here, a little foreshadowing. Always ready to support and push them towards embracing challenging adventures. Her belief in the empowering nature of cycling and outdoor activities is encapsulated in her mantra, "It's easier than parenting," highlighting the simplicity she finds in these pursuits compared to the complexities of raising children. Up next, we've got Jennifer Swaartout. Jennifer is the Associate Vice President for General Education at Northwest Arkansas Community College and has lived in Northwest Arkansas for 5 years. She's always had a bike, but she started taking cycling, quote, seriously around 20 years ago, riding mountain bikes and then adding other disciplines in along the way. She lives in Bella Vista with her terrier mix Callie, and she currently volunteers as a ride leader for Femmes Gravel and is an Amazeum board member. We'll have to ask about what Femmes Gravel is because I'm very curious. And then finally, we've got Diana Gibson. Last but not least, Diana is a mom with 3 kids, including twins, and a demanding full-time job. Her favorite thing is an all-day or multi-day adventure in the mountains. She's trying to figure out how to keep exploring and having fun while getting older and being a fully functioning adult. Oh, I'm so excited. Thank you all for joining us. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thanks, Marley.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, let's start out with, I guess, kind of an easy softball question. What inspired you to sign up for Ozark Gravel Doom?
Diana made me do it.
Is that true, Diana?
Kind of, yeah.
Your
Yeah,
fault.
as I've been getting older, I've been trying to think of like adventures and events that still like inspire me and get me a little scared. And so there were 2 this year that I was really focused on that I kind of didn't know whether I could finish. One was the Mid-South Double, which was a few weeks ago.
Did you finish that?
And I did.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, and I
As one
actually
does.
trained
I mean-
for that one.
Say that one more time. You did what with that one?
I actually trained for that one. So I had run some marathons before, but I'd never run more than that. And so the thought of doing 50K of running on trails really scared me, followed by like 100-mile gravel ride. So I trained for that, and then I had heard about Doom, and it definitely sounded scary, but I thought that, maybe if I showed up and kind of gave it a shot, it would be fun.
It was fun.
That was gonna be my follow-up question. Now that it's over, was it fun, objectively?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
And I want to say I really relate to what Diana said, that I joke that I needed a winter project, but I have a tendency as well to say like, well, what I think we're probably all very goal oriented. I'm just going to venture here a thought, and I wanted to pick something that was beyond my usual comfort zone, and this definitely was. So
Yeah.
and it was definitely fun.
So I did some research and it looks like, so you guys did the Despair distance, which was 196 miles. Please correct me if I have this wrong, but 2 days, 10 hours and 1 minute. Is that correct?
Yes.
Have you ever done anything of this I don't know, I don't want to say level necessarily, but taken on something of this adventure level?
Ah, it's funny because Janine's nodding. I definitely hadn't. I mean, I had done bike packing, but more on a social thing. And I had done lots of gravel races and mountain bike races, and some of them were quite long. But I've never tried to put the two together, and I've never done a self-supported ride or race.
Mm,
But I
yeah.
suspect Diana and Janine probably have some experience. It's a little different with this stuff.
Yeah, Jannine, let's hear about your experience.
Yeah,
living in the Mountain West, I've had bike packing experiences. Maybe, there used to be a race from Montana to where I live in Victor, Idaho, and that was a multi-day self-supported, probably about 400. And then have done
400 miles?
That was 400 miles, 350,
Wow.
400. But there's also the San Juan hut trip, and that's a multi-day. You're staying in huts at night. So definitely multi-day, pretty self-supported adventures. I would say this one was different in the sense that I guess having a loaded bike and tossing in all of that single track, that 20 miles of single track was definitely a challenge. And then on top of it, like 18% gradient gravel climbs. In the Mountain West, you climb forever seemingly, but I don't hit those types of pitches.
Yeah, it's a different kind of climbing out there.
It's different. So it definitely felt physically more of a challenge. And then also as being older, being 50, my hands on a drop bar, bike on single track over rock gardens, and the hands hurting. It definitely physically felt way more demanding than anything I've ever done in the past. So it was intense.
Yeah, and I want to dig into the age in just a second. But Diana, have you ever taken on anything like this before?
Yeah, no, not really. I've done a lot of backpacking trips and hiking. I grew up backpacking with my dad and my family, and I've done a lot of bike racing, but I'd never really put the two together before. The other thing for me is that although I've done long bike rides, I was trying to think about when I've ever done 27,000 feet of climbing.
We could have
Wow.
pedaled to the top of Everest.
Yeah.
We could have gone to the top of Everest by bike.
I'm not sure I've done that ever,
Let's not.
even in my 20s, much less on like a fully loaded,
Yeah.
heavy bike, mountain bike, basically. So yeah, in retrospect, I'm not sure what I was thinking.
I think honestly, like it speaks to something. I think it speaks to both our preparation physically and athletically that we were actually more prepared for this and healthier and stronger than we realized. And also the sort of the mental ability, right? And a lot of that I think had to do with both our individual personalities, that we were probably not going to give up, although I tried several times and they wouldn't let me. But but that also that we were kind of working together to, so when you hit those moments, I had some dark moments, and I had two people with me that were like, nope, sorry, not going to let you quit. You're fine. Everything's fine. And
Eat a snack, you're fine.
yeah. I mean, there was a lot of that, especially the last day.
Yeah. So did you guys all plan to ride together? It sounds like Jannine and Diana planned to ride together, or at least take on the adventure together. How did you all three come together? At what mile did that happen?
It's right before Buffalo Headwaters School. So I don't know. I can't remember what mile that was.
Yeah, I
20,
forget.
30?
I forget the mile. You were there
Yeah.
helping Matt, and
Was it fairly early on? I'm
About
not
mile
super.
28, I
yeah,
think.
yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Very cool.
we'd sort of all like started differently, and the two of you had started together. And there's actually a fourth woman from Northwest Arkansas that I had done a lot of training with and deserves recognition, Laura Shields.
Yeah.
Is not 50, is an incredible athlete in her own right, and just absolutely crushed this race. But I'd hoped to keep up with her, and kind of thought I may not be able to, and I was right. And so when I saw Diana and Jannine, I was really happy.
I can imagine this would have been a totally different experience if you were out there on your own.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I think it might have even been a different outcome. So
Speaking of, there is still somebody out on the course right now because there is no time cutoff.
I know.
So,
And that storm the other night, I was thinking about those
yeah.
folks that were still
Yeah.
out there. Oh,
I think their name is Kendall. So Kendall, if you ever hear this, we are rooting for you.
yeah,
yes.
Last time we checked, she was at Ozark and had about 115 miles left to go. So probably another 2 days at the pace she's going. So,
Mhm. Go
um,
Kendall.
well, let's talk about the fact that you are all either just turned 50 or about to turn 50. What is the significance of that?
I mean, I would say for me that I feel personally that I'm in a space right now that I could spend more time to focus on my fitness and getting ready for this. It's been years of adventures from backcountry skiing to like Diana backpacking that I feel like that mental, like being ready mentally is something that I feel I really appreciate that I have because it's what allows me to kind of dive into these adventures and feel excited about it. It's very rarely that you'll see me like get sad when I'm out having an adventure because I'm like, I'm on an adventure.
Yeah.
Except for if lightning and a storm comes in, I panic. I have this visceral reaction to like storms like that. And so you might see me lose my mind, get sad, or if it's super hot, I don't love it. I have to really dig deep to stay positive. But so I feel like as I get older, that mental piece becomes stronger and stronger. It's just the challenge becomes the physical part. And so, which was interesting, Jen, for you, because you were so strong physically. I was so impressed with you. And I think that with if the some of those mental pieces, that mental toughness piece, as you grow with that from more adventures like this, I think that you could have been right up there with Laura for sure. So
Honestly, that I'll get all emotional. That means so much coming from you. And I mean, you both are such incredible athletes and adventurers. And like, I think I'm in like this midlife space, where lots changed in my life in the last 5 years. And so a friend asked me, is this an exorcism? Like, why would you choose this? And I really approached it with a lot of joy and surprise. Like, I am shocked that my body is doing what it's doing right now for a lot of reasons. And it's so exciting because I think we have this narrative that our bodies are only going to decline, right? And those injuries are real. Like, if you're an endurance athlete, you haven't gotten to this space probably without, you've got arthritis in your hands or your feet or something like that. And I do have some of that, but I have been absolutely shocked at how resilient my body has been, particularly, I'm sure it's because I was so scared when I signed up for this race. I was saying that I was like 30% excited and 70% terrified. That was like November when I signed up. And then by the time I got to the start line, it was kind of flipped, like I was still pretty nervous, but I was mostly excited. And I knew in order to finish, to have a chance of finishing, that I would have to be really methodical about this, which is not, frankly, my wheelhouse. And so I put in a really, specific plan, thinking like, well, at least I'll show up at the start line having done everything I can possibly do to be physically ready. The other prongs were like the outdoor stuff, like orienteering or, just being comfortable in a remote place. And I knew it would be remote, but I had no idea it would be that remote. And so I think those are the pieces that are so new to me, like again, I've done some camping and bikepacking and stuff, but this was really a whole other level. So I think, Diana, you said ignorance was on your side once to me, like about this race. And that's definitely, it was helpful that I didn't really know all of what I was getting into. So.
Yeah. Jen, do you think the Jen from 5 or 10 years ago could have done what you just did?
No,
No.
not at all.
Yeah. What about you, Diana? What does it mean to be 50 or when is your birthday? Are you already 50?
Yeah, no, my birthday's so my birthday's in June, so I am almost 50, and I've definitely had that kind of at the top of my mind. And, for me, I would say just because I do have 3 kids, I have a job, I have a lot of responsibilities. I don't have a ton of time to train. And so I am getting slower, and that's been actually kind of hard in a lot of ways for me. So it's meant like sometimes I'll do the short version of the event in terms of like always doing the long version in the past, and just taking it a little bit easier on myself. But on the plus side, I know lots of older people say this, but I've stopped caring about what people think as much too.
Absolutely.
Yes,
And that's
exactly.
been really liberating. So I'm kind of okay with it. And I'm a lot less scared of failure now than I was when I was younger. I just really don't care now. And I maybe have more of a sense of urgency too. Like I'm definitely not getting younger and I'm not getting faster. So if I'm inclined to do something or try something, like why not do it now?
Yeah. Oh, I
And
love that.
You're
felt
being
like
quite
that
humble.
in
She's
my 20s or
She
30s.
is.
she's being very humble. You're just like watching you do the double and coming in from each thing with like this huge smile and not at all, seemingly not even in the spirit world, just like, okay, I know I gotta rest, I gotta get ready for tomorrow. Like, so sure, I would say I agree with you that I think the attitudes that we have now going into events are different. It's not as much that fear or feeling like we have to prove something, but surely, Diana was, I felt like even just this weekend, just having that sense of like, Jen, wouldn't you say like that rock?
Yeah, leadership, really both of
Yes.
you. I kept thinking about what incredible leaders you both, I mean, I already knew that because of the Femmes Gravel work and other things that you both do in the community. I knew, I know the jobs you do, more or less. And so it doesn't surprise me that those elements came out on the road, the trail, in our trip this weekend. But, I mean, there's a real leadership there on both of your parts. So that was really something to be part of and be the beneficiary of, frankly. So
Well, it sounds like you all worked really well as a team, which is so
I think
cool.
so.
Yeah.
I wanted to say about I just remembered something, and that was, like the last couple of years I've really been focused on, like, I'm not like someone that makes New Year's resolutions or whatever, but I remember thinking to myself at some point in the last couple of years that I wanted to start saying yes to things that I would normally like instinctually say no to, even stuff that I wanted to do because I didn't want to fail, or I was afraid I'd get hurt or something bad would happen or something like that. And I definitely, I agree with Diana that this is, I think, a time in our lives where we're just really starting to say like, well, what do we want? What do I want to do in my life? And, outside of what everybody else might want, or, and I think that's particularly challenging when you're raising a family. So I really admire that Jannine and Diana, in their incredibly busy lives, have committed to events like this over and over again, and other, community roles. So these are,
Yeah, definitely. I've had the pleasure of riding with Diana and one of your kids for a number of events, which has been really fun.
Those kids are amazing.
My daughter, all of my kids ride, and we've tried to kind of be a part of mentoring kids having adventures, and especially girls and young women. And part of that is because when I was in my 20s and 30s, I rode with a group of women on the road mostly for a while, but there were a bunch of 50 and 60-year-old women in that group, kind of women of all ages, from 20s to 60s. And I remember thinking they were so old and strong then, but I really looked up to them. And now it's just interesting being in that position now. And I do realize that, like, in some ways people are watching us and kind of looking to us for strength and inspiration too, which has been an interesting feeling.
Yeah, I think folks
definitely.
are really inspired by all three of you. Well, I want to touch briefly on Femmes Gravel, because I think that's a huge movement that's happening here in Northwest Arkansas. And I think Janine, you're involved in leadership. Same with you,
Hmm.
Jen. I think Diana, you are also. Tell
Yeah.
us about it and how that maybe helped you prepare for this event.
Well, it's an amazing event. This will be our fourth year. My first year, I would say, was my first winter. Maybe I got into here, and my son was telling me, "Mom, you need to have more girl time," because I was definitely struggling a little getting into Arkansas, living from the Tetons, leaving behind a lot of friends, forever friends, and so he knew that I always loved having these female adventures, and just I love it. I love the history of adventures that I've had just with women. It's a game changer.
Yep.
It's my sanity. And so at the same time, there was this, I think it might have been an Instagram post or something about this group of ladies starting to ride gravel. And the idea was to do a century on Mother's Day weekend. And that's kind of how it all started, right? With all of us. And starting to ride every weekend. And I would say in the 4 years, it's just grown. This year is, what do we have like 50 or 60 women showing up.
Oh,
And
yeah.
and it's a great event. It's not necessarily an intro to gravel riding, and I would love to see that somebody pick up um that realm. There's only so many things people can do. So it definitely is for folks who are comfortable-ish gravel riding, but they want to do a century. So how do we get there? And so without a doubt, it definitely helps with this training because every weekend we're working on it and raising our miles up. So, and then other activities are happening during the week as part of this FEMS group and, education from changing a tire to, nutrition. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, that's huge, right?
was
In
huge.
Yeah, and we're
itself.
going to talk about that because I want to know
Yeah.
how you all handled that
Yeah.
out on the course.
Yeah.
But
So FEMS, yeah, it's great. It's awesome if anyone's listening and they do gravel ride and
Yep.
they feel somewhat comfortable on a gravel bike, can at least feel, ride 30 miles and feel okay, then they should definitely think about starting with us next year. It's awesome.
yeah, and
Yeah, no,
I travel far too much to do it on the regular, but I've gotten to attend a couple of rides and they are
Yeah.
really well done. And it's they teach people how to ride in a group and how to pace line and so many important skills if you want to be efficient on your bicycle.
Mhm.
So
I feel like we should acknowledge, the co-founders. That's Heidi Nelson
And
and
Amy
Amy
Ross.
Ross, and they're pretty sure Amy's around our age, and Heidi's probably in her 40s as well. So I think again with the theme of midlife, athletic pursuits. I mean, they're two of the also very talented athletes and
Mhm.
community leaders. So grateful to
Yeah.
have been a beneficiary of
They
their.
might be mad at us for aging them.
Totally. Yeah, friends. If
I'm not sure they're as old as we
Sorry.
I don't think who's as old as, there's no one as old as we
No
are.
one's as old as
you guys are
We are definitely
ancient.
the oldest, yeah, of all the groups.
We're the
Right?
oldest of everyone.
Do you actually, that's a really good question. Do you know, were you the oldest folks at the event?
No, there was a guy who
No.
turned 50. There was a guy we were riding with whose birthday was the day we all rode in. He was 50 from British Columbia.
Oh, that's so awesome.
They
Yeah, it
were,
was
I
his
mean, actually, I
birthday.
don't think they listed anyone's ages, did they? Which was
Yeah,
fine
they
with
did.
me. They did?
Yeah,
They
you
really
can
were
see
the
on
oldest?
track leaders, I think.
Yeah.
You know what? We did keep seeing people pass and be like, yeah, but they're like under 30. That's why they're not sleeping.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like 22.
Well, let's talk about the logistics of this a little bit. So you were out there 2 days, 10 hours, and 1 minute. I got some rapid fire questions and then we'll get the details. Did you sleep?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Tell
Camped.
me about that.
We camped every night.
Okay.
Both nights.
Both
Oh,
nights.
Yeah.
okay. This seems a lot more approachable. I often feel like I hear about these people who do these 200, 400 mile without sleeping, without stopping, and it seems literally impossible. So tell me your strategy. How many hours of sleep did you get a night? How often were you refueling? Are there places to refuel out there? Are you literally carrying all your food for 200 miles?
I carried a lot. I think maybe each of us had a slightly different strategy, but you have to be prepared, to really fuel up to 4,000 or 5,000 calories a day, and like I said, we should probably speak individually about planning, but for me, I was really afraid of not being able to reach the resupply spots. And the first day, for instance, if we were going to do 60 or 70 miles in one day, there was no resupply, and so, I'm trying to think if there there was a water, I mean, but you really had to be prepared to carry or have access to water and fuel. And maybe the two of you can add to that.
Did you take water filters and just filter from streams?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
And we were able to fill up from locations as well that were listed that, the race organizer, Andrew, gave certain cues that we knew where we'd find some water, and then we knew where there would be gas stations and food stops. But in between, you needed to have your snacks and have what worked. And, back to nutrition, for me personally, I can't do I've struggled always with the nutritional drinks, the liquid fuel makes my stomach rot, and I don't like that feeling. So Bobo bars, I'm a vegan. Bobo bars are the bomb. I eat those. And then some of those stores we stopped at had sandwiches and bread, and I would buy I found Frito-Lay bean dip. Yes. It is
I didn't know that was vegan. Okay.
Yeah, there's a bunch of other nasty chemicals in it, I'm sure. But I just bought the canister and gave it to the person. It's like, can you slap that on some bread with some lettuce and pickles and mustard? And boom, make a couple of them, take one with you, eat one right there. So you just, for me, my strategy was just try to get as much real food in me. And then I can do electrolyte drinks, like the Noon tablets. I've figured out don't make me yucky, and it's still working. I haven't had an issue. And so through rule of threes, through everything else. So I'm not, even though like Diana, right? We were like, oh God, I don't want to eat another Bobo bar, but I'm like, eat the Bobo bar because it works.
Yeah, that's such good advice. And Diana, I'm gonna come to you in just a second. But when people ask me about, what do you eat on those gravel days? And it's like, it doesn't really matter as long as it works for you. Everybody's digestion is different. You just got to get those calories in. So I love that you made a Frito bean dip sandwich.
Yeah,
so smart.
Good.
So
I kind
smart.
of want one now, and I'm not even riding.
And Diana, what was your nutrition strategy out there? What did you subsist on?
Well, I brought kind of a variety of normal ride food and then real food, and also freeze-dried meals for dinners in the evenings. We came pretty fully prepared for camping. So we had tent, stove. Coffee is also non-negotiable for me. So we had freeze-dried coffee for the mornings. And but I think that was one of the real challenges of this route for beginners, especially, was just, essentially 90 miles of no food resupply the first day. And then the race organizer, Andrew, had warned us on Sunday that potentially nothing was going to be open also because of Easter. So you're really out there with potentially, no calories. There was lots of water because it's been a wet spring and we were filtering. But I mean, other than that, you really had to be self-reliant during this one.
And I was thinking about this the last couple of days. I think the three of us did an excellent job of staying fueled, staying hydrated. I mean, we really, off and on had, moments where we were, like I said, in a calorie deficit. Someone's getting toward that bonking point, right? We only had a couple of those, and that was really on the last day when I think we really did start. Each of us started in a calorie deficit, just because your system just keeps going, right?
Yeah.
But we were very intentional, I think, and very smart about our eating and drinking. And I think it showed in in the way we were able to finish. So.
Yeah. And I think it shows, we were talking about this before the show, in your recovery. It sounds like recovery for each of you is besides understandably being tired, but it seems like it's going okay. I guess,
I'm still eating nonstop though. I've been eating nonstop.
Yeah.
And that makes sense. You just rode your bike for
no
a very long time.
You needed more bean Frito bean sandwiches.
I'm going
Clear.
to try the bean sandwich later.
Yeah. Well, I'm curious to hear about your bike setup. So, Janine, you mentioned drop bars. I think I've seen some photos. Some of you were on mountain bikes. I would love to hear about your bike setup and if you would change anything for next time. So, Jen, let's start with you. What were you riding and how did it work
I
out?
rode a Specialized Fuse, and that's a hardtail geared mountain bike and mountain bike gearing. So for me, that worked. I mean, I think, and I've thought a lot about this because I love riding single track on my gravel bike, drop bar, all that, but I think this worked great for me for my first trip like this. And, there are pros and cons. It wasn't a super light bike and it was packed, pretty heavy, but I think the flat bars helped me. I think I had a fit, that I think that was really important. And I was super comfortable really the whole time. But again, another surprise. I think I expected other problems to pop up there. And I think the fit helped. And I think the suspension. So Diane, I think you were the only one, you didn't have a suspension fork, right?
I did not, despite being warned by the race organizer, Andrew.
This is how tough she is.
So
It's
tough.
incredible.
I don't need a suspension fork. We need that. I mean,
Yeah, I'm not sure that was the best decision. That is probably the one thing I would have changed. I have a Salsa Fargo that's titanium that I basically bought specifically to get ready for this event, used from someone, and it came fully rigid, and I just wasn't really prepared to put a new fork on it or change the gearing or anything. But I do think that having a little suspension, even if it made things a little heavier, would have been well worth it. And I would have probably cried a lot less in the single track section on the first day.
but you rode it like a beast. I mean,
Yeah,
like,
I've heard that single track was really intense.
Yeah, and it was, I think about almost 40% of the field scratched, and most people scratched after that first day of single track because it was just so brutal that kind of getting your head around 2 more days was really, or another, 100 miles after that was pretty tough, 120 miles after that.
Yeah. Wow. A 40% scratch rate. That's a lot.
It was huge.
Yeah.
I mean, I
We're
think
mostly
you had
dudes,
the
I have to
people.
say.
Well, the folks who were looking to, really go and race it, and went light and didn't have all the things, they realized that took a while to get through all that. And all of a sudden it was like, uh-oh,
Yeah.
this is not maybe going to work out. And,
I think
but the bike choice, I would say was personally for me was probably the bigger thing. I have the same bike. I have a Salsa Fargo. I love that bike. I've ridden it. Mine's from like 2014 and had to, Frankenstein it back to life a little bit, but I did put a suspension fork on the front of it and that was huge. But I went with drop bars because that's what it comes with, because I have a lot of hand stuff and carpal tunnel, and that drop bars give me more hand positioning. I do struggle a little bit more with my mountain bike. But in hindsight, I would have changed it and I would have gone with flat bars, just with all that technical descending and single track being in the drops is just, it's hard in the neck. It was hard. So I would have changed that. But Diana, for my Fargo, I loved, it's essentially a mountain bike. The Fargo they used to make a bike called the El Mariachi Salsa, and it's essentially an El Mariachi with drop bars. And so I thought the gearing was awesome for climbing. It would have run out on more flats, but that really wasn't much of a problem on this ride. So I never felt like I ran out of gearing on the high end. And so
27,000 feet of climbing. That is a lot of climbing.
Yeah, but
they're
heavy.
Laura met us at the finish line and said, guys, tell me if I got this right, but she said, so I think there were 9 women who signed up for Despair. And she said Sunday when we got there that none of the women had scratched.
Yeah. That's incredible. Yeah. And honestly, not surprising.
You don't say.
Yeah.
And
Not surprising at all.
Of like you two, I'm like, you know what? They've had children. they've been through childbirth. This is fine, you know. Like,
Yeah. Well, that kind of goes to my next question. So, Janine, I know your mantra is this is easier than childbirth.
Well,
Or
easier
not
than
childbirth,
parenting. Man,
easier than parenting.
childbirth was easier than parenting.
Yes. So, is that something that you remind yourself of during the ride? And then for Jen and
yeah.
Diana, did you have any mantras you said to yourself to keep yourself going?
I think I just really focused on what was my self-talk, you know, and I kept having to, and this was really helpful for me, just assess the facts on the ground. How is my body? Do I have all the things I need? Do I have water? Do I have food? So my challenge, frankly, was just sort of periodic anxiety, you know, that I was going to die in the woods somehow. I mean, you know, like I'm a suburban girl, right? I'm from suburban Detroit. I didn't grow up anywhere. I mean, outdoors. We played outdoors, but there was just nothing. There were no family trips out to do wilderness camping. I literally didn't know anybody who did anything like that, you know, any time in my childhood. And so, you know, here I am 50 years old, kind of, you know, exploring that stuff. And I was nervous about it, you know. I mean, I think when you grow up in a place where there is no, like, isolation is bad, right? If you end up in a place where there's not a lot of people or a lot going on, that's dangerous, right? And so for me to kind of get to know the woods and the wilderness as emptiness is safe, has been a real game changer. And like I just had to, like I said, keep thinking about, like, what are the facts on the ground? You know, do I feel okay? I've got these two people with me, you know, I've got a tracker. And so, and honestly, like for most of those miles, this is what I think is remarkable. I really was in this beautiful state of flow most of the time, even though there were really hard climbs and stuff. I was mostly just in my head and kind of happy because I was pedaling. So, you know, there definitely, that wasn't all the miles. You know, some of the miles were like, I don't know if I can do any more miles, right? Especially on that last day. That was the last few hours of the last day were really rough. But for the most part, I just kind of focused on thinking about what was going right.
I love that.
We didn't have any tire slashes or anything. We had basically zero mechanicals, and Diana's going to have to talk about her brakes in the last few miles of the trip because she burned out her brakes. But
oh wow,
you know, we really, it's like there was no reason not to keep going because it was all going really well.
Yeah, weather was perfect. Everything.
Yes.
Diana, what happened to your brakes?
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah. So I'll talk about my kind of coping mechanisms first, if that's okay.
Yes, please.
So I had some pretty low moments, Jen, and Janine can attest on the final day, a little bit of bonking, definitely not enough dinner the night before. And then just some really serious chafing. I only brought one chamois for the whole trip. And in retrospect, I should have brought another one with a completely different seam pattern too, just to shift things up. But I was in a lot of pain. And when that happens, actually, and I have to go really deep, I just end up counting. So there were all these steep hike-a-bike sections where we were just pushing our bikes up like 20% grade. And I was just counting steps, like count the next 5 steps, count the next 10 steps. And same with like the epic hill that we had like a few miles before the finish.
I've heard about this hill.
Probably just like
Murray
counting
Hill.
pedal strokes.
Yeah, Murray Hill. Yeah.
Thank you, Andrew, for putting that on this route.
Yeah, it was unbelievable. And then wait, what am I supposed to be saying now?
Oh, what happened to your brakes?
Oh, what happened to my brakes? So I did buy this used bike, and so I didn't put new brake pads on it, and I probably should have, but I think things got just so gnarly in there with all of the stream crossings we went through. We probably did like at least 30 stream crossings, I think, and it was pretty wet in the woods, and I think my brake pads were just completely burned through and starting to seize metal on metal. So Janine told me I had to just send it on the descents and not touch the brake.
That's like my favorite part. And Diana's like, all right, here I go, you know.
And you're here today, so it worked out. But wow.
Like,
Thankfully.
Like, because I don't know how, Diana, you were probably, this is what I imagine. I didn't get to ask you about this, right? So I don't know, was it like maybe 5 miles left to go when we hit pavement? And then we had to kind of go through town to get back to Horseshoe Canyon. And Janine had said, Diana's brakes are toast, and I said, what? Sorry, what? Because there's these massive descents, right? And we all talked about before, like, we're gonna have to check our brake pads after this. This is gonna be really interesting because they're probably all burned out. And so I just remember looking back and going like, how is she doing this, right? Because so how bad was it? Like, could you get any engagement whatsoever?
No, because they would just start seizing on and not release, which was even scarier.
So Diana's doing enduro next year. I mean,
and I love that we're like we gotta finish. And so I was like, Jen, you go in front, and I'm gonna just stay behind Diana. Like, what was I thinking? Like that was gonna help. I'm like, well, I guess in case she crashes, I can see it.
I remember thinking that too, like, well, okay, I'll go in front. Like maybe I'm the person blocking her going into something.
Yeah, you could be the buffer.
Run into me. That's okay. Like by this point, I'm like, yeah, use me. I'll be fine. Like whatever it takes. Is definitely a team effort. And we rolled into Horseshoe Canyon, all in one piece, and kind of remarkably, I think, given the brake situation.
Yeah.
And,
yeah, almost no mechanicals. Aside from
Virtually
some
none.
chafing, sounds like your body's held up pretty well.
Yeah.
That is so impressive. Well, I have one last question, and then I have our final two that we ask every guest. I feel like we could have this conversation forever, and I think you three need to go have a download over a cup of coffee somewhere because you got stories.
Yeah.
But I guess, your perseverance on this was incredible. And so what advice do you have for how to keep going when you really just want to quit a ride? What would you tell folks?
Do it with friends.
Mm.
I mean, I think one of the things I thought a lot about on this trip was I'm not sure I'm built to do these sorts of things alone, even though I find it so fascinating that lots of people on this race, were doing it solo. But, I think it does help to have people around you, and everybody's different, and I also think that, if you're someone like me who has struggled with anxiety, the best thing you can do is prepare, because then you have facts on the ground that say, here's what I've done that will make this safe, and doable. So preparation and interdependence. This was a tremendous lesson from beginning to end. From when I started training, so many people helped me prepare for this race. I can't even tell you. So that's what I would say. This is not something that really you do alone.
Thank you. Janine or Diana, any sage words?
Yeah, it's interesting. It just my husband just passed on a podcast to me from Sam Harris, an episode about problem solving. And, we are like, whoever thinks that you're just going to live, there's going to be a time where you're problem free. It's just not a thing. Like you problem solve. That's part of who we are as humans. You're constantly problem solving. And that's what these adventures are, it's problem solving. But in the long run, it's awesome problem solving. You're making it happen. You're out in these beautiful terrain. I mean, my mind parts were blown out there. Jen, how many times was I like, oh my God. And I'm from the Tetons. I mean, like that is gorgeous. And I was just blown away. So if you can really look at it as it's present, it's like you're present. It's not like with parenting, I'm not, you're wondering am I screwing up my child, or there's these things that, can manifest. But when you're on adventures like this with cool women, you're just problem solving, but it's just present problem solving. It doesn't feel heavy.
Right.
Obviously, if you get sick and you're hurting, yes, but you have it in reach. You have a lifeline. You try to get help if you need it. So I think it's just trying to enjoy the moment. Be present and realize that it's the best kind of problem solving.
Good advice. What about you, Diana? What would your advice be to folks when things get really tough?
Yeah, Yeah, I think for me, it's always helpful to just acknowledge that you're going to have a lot of highs and lows, both physically and mentally, and that's just going to be part of it. And so I think focusing on just the next mile or the next like aid station or the next rest stop and kind of not overthinking beyond that, or just if it's a multi-day trip, just thinking like about the current day and breaking things down into kind of discrete goals is super helpful in terms of getting yourself to keep moving forward.
Yeah.
That's what I was focused on. You can tell I was in a lot more survival mode than maybe anyone else on this one.
Oh, no, that's not true.
You
Maybe
didn't seem
Jannine.
like
I think
it.
Jannine was okay. I mean, or she didn't reveal it, but
I was digging deep. That's
Yeah.
for
I
sure.
I had some dark nights of the soul, some of them in the middle of the day. So
I've never heard that before, but I like that expression, dark nights of the soul. Yeah. Well, you guys, congratulations on an absolutely epic adventure. Will you sign up for it again?
So on Sunday night, I said, this was lovely and this is amazing. And I never need to do anything like this again. And within 24 hours, I was like, somebody tell me not to do this again, but it's strangely addicting. If I did it again, I would prepare even more. I would have to take my experience to the next level in order to do it well. But I don't know. I'm curious. What do you two think?
I don't know. I would have to think about the bike. I would have to think about whether or not they're going to pull out some of that single track. I love single track. I love the rule of three. But I would say if you are planning on riding Hazel Valley or doing the 100 or the 200 rule of three, go do Despair first, because mentally I feel like I am ready to take on the world now.
Oh, yeah.
And all of that stuff does not even remotely feel scary. Obviously, there's issues with weather or heat or mechanicals, but it was, I would have to, I don't know, if it's with you two ladies, I'd go do it. If you said, let's do it, I'll do it. Let's do it.
Okay.
What about you, Diana? Will you take it on again?
I think I'm still at a no.
That is fair. Well, I will say, hearing you guys' adventures, and then I'm hosting a warm showers person who, are you guys familiar with warm showers?
Yep. Yeah.
So it's a website where traveling cyclists can stay with folks for free, essentially. So he stayed with me before the event, and now he's staying with me again. And then I have another friend, and just hearing their stories, it makes me want to sign up for it. But I don't know that I don't know that I should realistically, but we'll cross that bridge later. So
Yeah.
It's an incredible community, and I feel like I made so many new friends this weekend instantly. I mean, beyond the deepening, I think, of this friendship between the three of us, I just met all kinds of strangers that were instantly friends, and
Yeah.
that's remarkable to me.
and I think that's what I'm intrigued by. The bike riding I haven't thought about, but hearing you guys talk about it, and I know how strong of riders all three of you are, would make me seriously. I would need to train a whole lot, which is fine.
Train.
So, yeah. Well, thank you so much for spending your afternoon. Make sure you rest, recover, and I can't wait to see more photos that come out.
Love all of you.
Bye,
Thank
guys.
you.
Bye.
This is an All Bodies on Bikes podcast powered by Feisty Media. The show is produced by Maggie and Marley and edited by the team at Feisty Media. Thanks for listening.
Are you tired of getting caught in the rain with poorly fitting, flimsy rainwear? Well, let me introduce you to Cleverhood, makers of thoughtfully designed, durable, and size-inclusive rainwear. Cleverhood is designed by women, but is made for everyone who wants to embrace the elements and enjoy the ride, no matter the weather. Cleverhood was born out of the need to make rainy days into happy days, and with multiple choices of styles and sizes, all bodies can stay dry, visible, and happy. Maggie and I especially love their rain cape. Literally the only thing you need to fit is the head hole. Otherwise, it just fits. It's so cute and functional, and I feel like a superhero when I ride my bike in it. All of Cleverhood's designs have reflective elements thoughtfully integrated, including an option to customize it with the All Bodies on Bikes logo. They're also sustainable, with most of their fabrics made from recycled fibers and PFC-free DWRs. Social sustainability matters to Cleverhood too, and they only work with certified producers who follow labor and environmental standards, and they give nearly 5% of their profits back to community organizations, including All Bodies on Bikes. So whether you're commuting on a dreary morning, walking your dog in the rain, or waiting for the bus, Cleverhood is a great option. And remember, you can use the code ALLWEATHER for 15% off of your order.